And
We
it's
can't
awesome.
get on the phone without, we can't get on Zoom without coming up with a new idea. I love it.
I
We can get on
know.
a podcast and start making ideas. Let's just schedule on the podcast. Imagine that.
Yeah, totally.
I'm down. This is about you, all of you, your journey in music, and how you guys collaborated together.
Beautiful. Well, brothers, why don't you go first?
Yeah. So first off, both brothers found out Isaac's older, and you're born and raised in Australia. And talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, we actually, of course, we were born in Australia, started in music sort of separately, and actually re-met when we were in New York City as teenagers, because we both followed our mother at different times to New York City. She
was just in here.
She was here a second ago. But our mother decided to relocate herself and leave her family when we were sort of early teenage boys. She decided to follow this gut feeling and move to New York City to potentially return to the theater. And she was in the original cast of Hair, the touring cast.
Really?
So she was, it was in her blood. She was in a band with Colin Hay from Men at Work about
Wow.
18 months before Men at Work became Men at Work. So they were, sort of sorted, very good friends, potentially lovers. I don't know, it's kind of, we're not sure. But they were both really young together. And she was discovered on the streets of King's Cross in Sydney by the director at the time that was putting together the touring cast of Hair. And so she toured the world in Hair and found God in India, and then moved back to Australia, had kids, and then a decade or more later, she had this gut feeling to go to New York. And so she ended up in New York. I came first, Isaac came next, and then we never left. We basically sunk our teeth into New York City and didn't know how to return to the beaches of Australia. And we'd gotten into music separately. Isaac had discovered his voice, and I'll let him tell you his story. But I'd found jazz as a teenager, fallen in love with music at school. And I've ended up at a performing arts high school in New York. And on meeting back up, we realized that A, we're both doing music, and B, well, maybe we should write a song together. And when we did, we started harmonizing. And we looked at each other and went, well, we can't not do this together.
Yeah.
It was really the feeling. I know this with Radha, being a twin, you understand what that feels like. There was almost a twin energy with us at that time. So we set out, we thought success might be a week away, and we set out and cut our teeth in New York City in the early 2000s, and decided, we'll do whatever it takes to end up on stages. So that's how it sort of began our journey as what would become the Kin, and now the Brothers Koren, that we just sort of set on in this sort of 15-year journey, based in New York for the most part. So
Met some incredible people. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, to weave in Radha momentarily as well, we met some incredible people, one of which was this amazing producer. We still love him and work with him today. His name's Scott Jacoby, and he's loves soul music, and he's used to be a Grammy trustee. He's just a great human being in music. And he said, hey, after the session, he was like, actually, I've got a ping. You guys have to come to this party now. It's a loft party. And he's like, you're gonna meet some people I really love. Trust me, you're gonna come if you're free. So we go over there, we walk into this place, and Mickey and Radha, the two twin sisters, are sitting. You're both kind of like sitting, one maybe standing on the kind of kitchen island in this New York City apartment, and just holding court. There's just, I don't know, it looked like 100 people stuffed into this small apartment. And it was just a party. I think they were singing along. It was like kitchen karaoke. And the way we all just kind of looked at each other and goes, there you are. I remember you. I recognize you. And it was just a kindred spirit from the first moment.
Oh my gosh. Scott actually is turning 50, and he just invited us to his birthday. Wow. We should just all surprise him together and just show up together.
That sounds fun.
But he upstate New York. But yeah, he just I just got an email from him today. He's like, are you coming? But we've kept in touch all these years. But wow, God, I love. I feel like I didn't even know a part of the story, so it's so beautiful to hear that. Well, do you want me to segue
Yeah, jump
into?
in. Yeah, let's hear.
Jump in, yeah.
So I mean, I fell in love with them that night, and then I went to see their shows at Rockwood Music Hall in New York City, and I just became like not only a friend but also a fan of their music, and I just loved not only just their incredible vocal just range and songwriting, but it was also their souls and the way they involved the audience so seamlessly and beautifully. So actually all these years later, when I started Daybreaker 8 years ago, so Daybreaker is a global morning dance community, and we throw dance parties at sunrise in 30 cities all around the world, and we built a community of over 500,000 people who wake up to dance sober and on weekday mornings before people go to work. And it just became sort of an overnight kind of hit that we didn't even realize would happen. And so many thousands of people were wanting to dance to music and really be present to the music and not be sort of shrouded by drugs and alcohol. So Daybreaker is a sober dance community. And so anyway, during COVID, so fast forward, a year ago, we're in the middle of COVID, and we just shut down all 28 of our cities, and we launched Daybreaker Live online, and we realized, I don't even, did you guys actually yeah, of course you did, yeah, that day, but we ended up wanting to actually write a song as a community during the pandemic. And I remember having this idea with my team of just like, post COVID, there needs to be some way to bring kind of all of us together, and really write a song together. What if like our next Daybreaker anthem was written by our entire Daybreaker community on Zoom, right? Like from all around the world. And what would that be like if instead of it just being one person writing music, and then everyone listening to it, what if it was a collective that did that? I'd never seen it ever, actually. And then I just was like following the Brothers Koren's Instagram, and I saw that they had announced that they were doing a whole, unlock your voice, and a whole sort of series of incredible workshops to help regular people find their voice. And I just was like, oh my gosh, like what are the odds? And so I reached out on Instagram, and I just kind of like slid into their DMs, and I just said, hey, what's up, guys? Haven't talked to you in forever, but I have an idea. Can we jump on a call? And
it was crazy. Yeah. It just so happened that we'd been doing this very thing for 5 years. Yeah. Since, 2017, when we got invited to go to this retreat with, I think it was 100 different leaders in California. And Tarod looked at me and was like, we're not going to sing our show today. I've got this download that we need to write a song with the room. And I was like, fuck, that's intense. Excuse my language.
No, you can cuss.
And we did it, and it was awkward. And so we've done hundreds of them, and then during COVID, we started doing them virtually for corporations and writing anthems for groups and charities, and just for the thrill of it. And there are moments that are uncomfortable, and so it kind of takes a certain. So we applied. And I'll let Tarl tell the story, but we applied this kind of songwriting journey approach to, a practical approach to the songwriting process for groups to have, a democratic, experience.
Well, the songwriting process.
And it was.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say. It was just like it was so masterful. First we got on a call and it was just like, okay, great, we've done this before for the last many years. I was like, okay, this is perfect. And then when I invited you guys on to Zoom, there's like 300 people or so on Zoom, and just the way your process of just getting people to first, let's find a note together. Let's everyone sort of like unmute yourself, which is the opposite of what you typically say on a Zoom call, right? But it was like unmute yourself and everyone find a collective note together. And I was like, wow, this is so inventive. So all three was like, la, you know, and he was like, okay. And then like, they were like, all right, cool. And they had the guitar and they were like, all right, I think I hear like a C major as the main chord, you know, chord line. And like, let's use that as the thing. Like, so they literally like democratically, so ingeniously invited everyone to find the note together in a vocal toning moment, which I thought was genius. And then, and then it was like, okay, now let's start writing the lyrics. Let's now start humming the tunes. Let's find people to sort of like invite different melodies and tunes. And it was just like so interesting to watch you guys invite sort of first time songwriters, first time musicians to really find their confidence, to really unlock their voices. But then like the way you guys then took the sort of like the vocal tone or the lyrics, and then you sort of then turned it into a song, into sort of lyrics, into choruses that sounded like a song that had been worked on for, you know, months and months at a time. It was just extremely masterful. And I haven't had a chance maybe to even let you both know how impressed and inspired I was by that whole process. It was incredible.
Thank you. And what great timing, that, you know, you were looking for this way to bring your community together, and by reaching out, we're like, well, let's just do that very thing, you know, like coming together with the Daybreaker community. Adam, was such a thrill. Like it's such a community that's so ready to be tapped, you know, ready to be expressed and to create together. You know, it was clearly in such alignment that allowing song to kind of flow together. It just came out seamlessly in that hour and a half we were together.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, to us, the song creation is really just this beautiful excuse to dive into the creative process, is what we look at as nature intended, right? And that so many times the creative process gets skewed back to being kind of based on what people might want to hear or might want to receive. This could be a business idea or a song. And we feel like when you just open it back in the direction of making a mess together and setting the right conditions, and you know, masterful songwriters know this to be true, that really the more masterful a songwriter, the more they're like a kindergartner at play in a dirty sandpit, and that, you know, you arrive and say, hey, like, what kind of mess should we make? And you know, letting the gift of song kind of distill itself. So that's really what we've found, this way to just be with first time people in that process. And it brings this fresh magic. You know, sometimes when you have no concept of how to craft, you're the most free to craft, right? And so Daybreaker and Rada, of course, Eli, and everyone was just so ready to let it just come to the surface. And what came out was this really incredible song that we had the opportunity to record. The other thing about the song was we recorded the whole thing virtually too. So the actual song that sort of came out of it, Joy Generation, was created over the airwaves. Not one person except Isaac and I saw each other in the creation, all the way through, you know, recording, mixing and mastering. It was entirely a virtual experience.
I would say it was the most seamless experience of writing an anthem that we've ever had, because the community was already, like, Rada had been, and her whole crew had been kind of giving this energy and creating cohesion and expression all day, and then we come on and culminated in a song. So they were just primed and like, let's go. You know, we've always encountered groups with a certain amount of, you know, oh no, and you know, what the fuck face is going on, and like, you know, like
pale, like
just like, oh God, don't make me do this, but please let's do it, you know. But Daybreaker were just like, let's go, write a song, you know.
Yeah.
That's cool. Wait, so but Daybreaker is, you said, is a dance collective, right? So is anyone a songwriter, or was it just kind of this new untapped
was-
territory for everybody.
It was a new, and I think, dance and music, of course, are so intertwined. And I think if you
course.
have dance in your bones, you have music in your bones.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was a really new opportunity for our community to flex in different ways. But I obviously don't think we could have done it without these two, without Isaac and Torald really, shepherding the process. But I think that, there is a magical dance between music and movement. And I think that we often forget that in music listening, that actually what happens when we're listening to music, the best kind of music, you're tapping your feet, you're moving your head, you're bopping to the beat. And I think that the best music does that to you. It takes you away from the ears and into your body,
Absolutely.
On a quick question on Daybreaker, because you said it's a community, it's a sober, right? You said it's a sober dance community, and is that for, because I'm a sober person. I've drank for almost 5 years, so I was wondering if that's part of the whole the company. I mean, I guess you don't.
Well, yeah,
is it oriented around like some sort of AA or not at all?
No. I mean, I think the whole idea, why I started Daybreaker in the first place, and I think so much of what we do together as artists is just like to break the codependence between having fun and being fucked up.
Right.
I think so much often, music listening experiences or dance experiences, people are often high on some new designer drug or like has some drink in their hand that they're, spilling on people next to them. And it's a very often frustrating listening experience for real music aficionados, people who are there to actually take in music and take in the artistry of the musicians. So I think that, the idea of creating a sober experience, not only for the participants, but also for the artists who are there. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times artists have come up to me crying, tears in their eyes. Like, I've never played for a more present community. I've never played for a more connected group of people. This was like, I felt like I was actually finally getting into their souls rather than just sort of a monkey entertaining people with drinks in their hand. And
sure.
And I think that there's something to be said. And, I always encourage artists to say, hey, like maybe let the booze come after or before the music experience, or like maybe way after the experience, but like during the music listening experience, like let it be phones off and no booze so that people can actually be there focused on the music and really take it in,
Wow.
Oh,
You
chills.
You hit such a nerve with that because, if I really go into, firstly, and this is not always said, but, we definitely didn't get into music for sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Like I was a music nerd, right? And Isaac, his own version. And it was later that is a part of being a band. And you start to learn that it's a part of it. So you almost, as men in a band and brothers in a band, you start to get that, okay, well, I can play that role if I need to, like if it has to be a part of it.
Right.
But also you also start to discover, especially at a mid-level of success, is that in order to actually keep growing, it involves stuff like people handing you drinks as you play, and like promoters wanting to have Jaeger shots afterwards, and mastering the pretend I took a shot and throw it behind my back, and it's like funny and also really sad.
Sad.
I think it's a part of the industry people don't really want to talk about around music too, not just going out on a Friday night, but it's so amazing, Rada, that you're creating that environment, because it's true. And I think there's so many more artists out there that actually would accidentally have partied, not consciously said, I love partying, the accident, and I could go back to chunks of our career, even when we were opening for Pink and Coldplay and all that stuff we were up to, that I didn't think I was drinking when I had 3 vodka sodas. Like that wasn't a drinking night. That was just that was a normal night. And I never meant to drink, and so I think it's such a powerful, there's a really powerful message here about art, expression, creativity, and the impact you can have when you're just home in your body. So much of our work is about inviting people home into their presence, and it's got nothing to do with alcohol or the exploration of drugs.
And I think it's about songwriting and gathering, like you do, Rada, as like a safe space. Can songwriting be safe, even for the terrified? you know, and you know, similar to, can this gathering be safe, and that all of us acknowledged in a similar way, like have that cohesion of, okay, we're sober for this.
Another
we're
word for
fully
sober
present.
could be conscious, right? Just
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
present and
Like,
conscious.
that's exactly right. It's like, how can we, so it's like the word sober has, if you look at the dictionary, it's like muted in color, boring, you know, but it's
Yeah,
like,
sure.
you know, we actually want to redefine sober to be present, conscious, mindful, connected,
Beautiful.
intentional, you know, and I think so often, yeah, to especially in the dance world, also there's so many drugs, and so you know, so it's so it can be such a zombie land, you know, that and I think so much of the music space is again divorced from the body and how you're feeling. It's like an escapism rather than a returning to, right? Like we want people to return to themselves, not escape themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well said.
Yeah, that is really well said. I love that. And I've talked to artists too that I mean, you have this perception of like, yeah, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But if you really look at the artists that make it and achieve what they're trying to achieve, there's so much hard work and so much dedication and so much there that I think it's just kind of even looked over with certain, like, oh, look, he's just on stage, like partying and like having a great time. It's like, well, this person maybe is doing that. It might be an act. And it's also probably something that they obviously did the hard work. You don't just wake up, write a song, and then you have this huge following of people. I mean, maybe you get one successful hit on, especially, I guess now with TikTok and everything else, but what's the longevity of that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like, yeah, and I think that's so cool. The whole sober, the everything behind Daybreaker is so, like, it's right up my alley. Cause like I go to things and I'm like, okay, I just got to stand in the back, and you'll see the idiots like wasted and like I love this song. Totally. And it's like, are you here just to get messed up? And you know, I mean, I get it, I guess, but I don't know. You're not really taking in what, like, you guys go out there and perform and expressing yourself, so you're giving something to the crowd. But if somebody's all, you know, not fully there, they're not receiving the same, probably what you're intending, obviously.
100%.
Yeah, and I think it's like, you know, and it's like, maybe this is a call to all artists, you know, listening, you know, to really ask themselves, like, what type of audience member do you want, and what type of environment are you creating for your audience, right? And how can you take a stand and say no thank you to promoters, or how can we like really have that fortitude the way the brothers have done that so beautifully, you know, sort of like in having this sort of I feel like awakening to the type of music that you want to create, to be offering sort of your services not just as an artist and performer, but also as a teacher and a facilitator to help people unlock their voices. And I think that is the dharma of all of you know, so you know, all of us as artists, quote unquote. You know, like, I'm an artist in the sense that I gather people, right? They're artists in the sense that they create music that inspires gathering as well. But it's like, you know, is there a world in which we can really invite a whole new environment for music listening for the future, so that we can be present and respectful to the musicians on stage.
Oh my God.
How do you like manage 300 plus people on a Zoom call trying to write a song? To me, that just sounds like it'd be so chaotic.
Well, we'll start by saying, I think you have to be a little crazy, and you're looking at them. Crazy in one sense of redefining or reframing the word crazy to me means to come home, you know, in yourself and lean into the edge of what is comfortable or not. And I think inherently stepping into 300 people virtual and saying, we're going to write a song and there's nothing been prepared, and we're just going to trust the process of letting it unfold and understanding we only have 90 minutes to do so. It requires like not just being okay with being uncomfortable. I think as a leader, it requires you to seek out the space where it is uncomfortable and just usher people, right? Like, I think shepherding, I think Rada said, we shepherd people forward through the parts that most of us get stuck in, right? And so a lot of it's to do with like just knowing we're going to get to a song. I think we both trust that we know no matter who's in the group, we're going to get to a song within the hour, no matter what.
Yeah, and it also, I agree with that, and it also came from errors. You know, it just came from forcing ourselves to, like Charles said, the outcome of getting to the song, and we really didn't know how particularly we were going to do it the first time, other than we'd applied our, what came to us is we call the songwriters journey, which is this practical 10-step process which starts in making a mess. It starts in true chaos. It starts in anything's possible. And then after that, it starts, looking for the yes and. Like, what is that thing that we can all love? Can we take that and play with it? Sculpt it, we call it. And then from there, can we look for some kind of meaning or something we can repeat, something we could find some form in, and we call that framing. And then from framing, we kind of see the bigger picture, and we take turns in holding the space while the other goes off and does some distilling and kind of patchwork and putting the ideas together, making decisions. So there are some kind of critical moments where we make decisions for the whole based on what we've learned from them in the time we have with them. And then from there we kind of move into lyrics, and that's when it kind of becomes really interesting and fun, because people are already really good at sharing their ideas on chat. Yeah. And so suddenly everyone's really good. Everyone's like, oh, I'm going to get in on this, And so, and then kind of like the scrolling, we got to like grab things, and like there's a person that's scribing and sharing a screen, and it gets really fun. And we quickly, in the moment, we don't dilly-dally. The greatest issue with any creative process we find is consideration. If we stay in consideration, we go into our heads, and suddenly we're not using our body to make decisions.
That's experienced songwriters too. I think there's a human element, right? No matter how experienced you are at songwriting, what kind of ways of being are you being? And one is, no consideration till the end. Make a mess in the front. Trust your first creative impulse. The greatest songs of all time have been created from someone trusting their first impulse, their first, and once that is let out, then it starts to sculpt and crystallize. And
in a safe space where the idea is not to judge, but to see what you love.
We call it daring to suck. And we learned that.
I like that.
We learned that originally many, many years ago from Billy Mann, who's a big songwriter.
Amazing songwriter.
And he said it in this session. We were signed to Interscope at the time, and we got this call that Billy wanted to write with us. And so we went up to his Connecticut home, and he has this, staircase to his private studio with all his records in it. And it was, pretty intimidating. We were on our best behavior, and he comes up fresh out of the shower after his trainer had seen him, and we were kind of, ready to write a song that we would be good, And he had this idea. He was like, all right, two brothers, one of you's love, one of you's fear. And it was very obvious at the time. I went through a lot of mental illness in my life, which is like, okay, I'll be fear. And so it was like the battle between love and fear was this idea he had. He just had this idea, this first creative impulse. And we went, okay, let's roll. So we started making these chords with him. Melody came out. He looked at us and said, okay, keep working on it. I'll be back for lyrics in a bit. Comes back, and we sit down, and it's all quiet. We're sitting in this studio, and
we had a good melody at the time.
We had a good melody,
and chords,
and there was like a couple of lyrics coming out for a verse, and we're all sitting there thinking about the second line of the verse. And I'm sitting there, and I suddenly have this idea rush up my body, and as it's about to touch my lips and come out, my body started to move to share it, and then the inhibition of I don't think that's any good came out. So I went, this is a podcast, but my body moved like I was going to say something, and I stopped myself. Mm-hmm. And out of the peripheral vision, Billy saw me do that, and he kind of finger snapped at me. What was that? What was that? And I went, huh? And he went, you're about to share something. Dare to suck. Trust me, it's gotten me far. And of course, I shared the idea, and it did make the song. And then and later that same session, he went, I'm just daring to suck. And he said it again about an idea he had. And that also made the song. And so that day, we left with this new framework. And over the last decade, especially in the last 6 years, when we started our company, Your Big Voice, and created programs around the songwriter's journey and the singer's journey, our mission has always kind of at least in part, sat under this way of being called Daring to Suck. And Daring to Suck to us is really specific now. You know, we've taken it and ran with it. It's, can you 2 feet into your instrument, your body, share the first creative impulse you have with no attachment to the result that it's liked, acknowledged, used, approved of, rejected? That can you daringly let it pass your lips, even if it's not great?
Mm-hmm.
And that way we're risking not sucking, we're really risking greatness at the end of the day. So that's really kind of a big part of our work with people.
I like that. And so you get together, you have these 300 people, the lyrics are coming through, you kind of have the melody, and then how do you frame the song from there? You said that it was able to be recorded, mixed, everything virtually. Like, how do you leave the session with all that stuff?
It's not exactly recorded virtually, but what we do is we demo it from our end.
Okay.
You know, we press record, we finish the song, and then and a lot of that is kind of final decision making. So Rada was in there kind of helping curate, and so you kind of need a curator in that final part of the songwriting.
I would think that,
but that's okay.
We kind of put it together, right?
We do that, and you know, they lean on us, but they're very much welcome. You know, ideas are flying, and we use all of them from, you know, we source it. We don't come up with any of them ourselves. We kind of just sourcing. You know, we're doing the sourcing and making decisions. And often we're asking, is that it, you know, is it this one? Do we vote this one or this one? And then, you know, we kind of count the votes, so to speak, with our eyes. Anyway, and then we sing the song, pressing record, making a voice note. And at the end, we always kind of unmute everyone for the final chorus, and we use that recording. And we go off, and Todd and I make, you know, in this vocal booth here and in our studio here, we just record a demo version of the song, and we mix in the background vocals.
We try to mix in people from the community into the song they wrote. And, you know, really we sing it through live, trusting that we can hold the framework, have them sing along on mute, unmute themselves, create that beautiful chaos. And then I'd say the most powerful way to complete any song to us, which I think is very overlooked, is always name a song. Even in, no matter what stage it's at, give it a value, give it a space, because as soon as you name something, you've claimed that it is. And when it is, it exists. And I think there's a lot of songwriters out there that forget that. They have a lot of ideas floating around that just say, like, you know, voice note 192. And ideas want to be honored. And as soon as we honor them, we call the particles into being.
We give them value.
It's super important. So we claimed it. And of course, it was very clear to Rada and the whole community, this was going to be called Joy Generation. So that's really how it came to completion.
I love that. And then so the song's done, and Rada, do you share it with your community? Like, what's the next step there?
Yeah. So we launched a music video that actually shared the entire songwriting process. So it's a very, what I love about this music video, that it actually talks about the full collaborative experience rather than just an end song, which I think can be quite boring sometimes. Like I'm a nerd for process. So like if every artist could actually, if their music video was them in the studio figuring out how to make things and doing the thing, rather than some like glossy, you know, hair blowing in the wind type thing, I just find that to be, I mean, way more interesting to see the process than some glossy finished thing. So we did that for this video. We really kind of shared the Zoom screens and really showed the dum da da dum, you know, like everyone kind of like humming their moments. And so we launched the music video, and then we did a huge dance party, sort of song release party in New York City, and had a bunch of press and media come there, and then we submitted for a Grammy. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I saw that. So that's the song that you guys submitted for in the best folk category? Or is that a different one? Okay.
No,
it's like our album has been submitted as best folk album, and Joy Generation was submitted for, I'm not sure.
Like, I don't even know. I think like song of the year.
Great. Why not?
Big one.
Why not?
That's amazing.
And I think like one of the reasons why we did that, like almost like not like, I actually think that the Grammys needs a complete do-over right now. I think the Grammys are desperate for something new and fresh that isn't just the same old stuff, constantly being shared and sort of coveted. I think the idea of a community written song that wins a Grammy, I think, is a completely new story and a new opportunity for the Grammys to democratize songwriting for all artists in the world, and also tells a different story around the competition or the competitiveness of the world of songwriting as it being something that is truly a human experience rather than you're the best and you suck and you win and you don't win. And, and I just feel like the whole thing just feels so like cool kids get to wear the badge, and the kids who are like also working just as hard don't have a little trophy to show for it. And I just think that, I don't know, I think there should be a new category or something around like collaborative, community-driven songwriting. But I just think that there needs to be a new story written around music. And I think the Grammys need Joy Generation. I think the Grammys need something that shakes the industry a little bit and tells a different story. And so I think that's why we submitted it, more of like a, hey, like we're here too. We exist too. It's a beautiful song. It's written by community, for the community, by the community, and that there's value there too. And it's also a magical song,
Amazing.
I love that.
Heard it here.
Beautiful.
That was beautifully said.
And are you guys, what about collaborating again? Is this something you'd be interested in doing again?
Please.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the request.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think there's so many things that I want to talk to you guys about, other projects that we have, but we're doing, next year we're doing 4 10-city tours, in, one in each quarter. So it's a very ambitious 2022. But we're planning, right now we're in the middle of building 4 10-city tours. Each tour has its own theme. So one tour is called Nature, and it's like Daybreaker at botanical gardens and outdoor spaces across the country. Daybreaker Culture, which is like Daybreaker at iconic arts and culture institutions like the Smithsonian Museum, or with the New York Philharmonic, or really exciting cultural institutions, and really thinking about how to actually bring dance and music in sort of more unconventional spaces. So in that, I would love to do some collaborations with the Brothers Koren, and I just think that there's so many more opportunities for this type of participatory experience design.
I like that. I was going to say there should be a Brothers Koren Daybreaker tour where you have your dancers on stage with them as they play.
And we write a song with the room, and we have an album.
Oh my God, I love that idea.
Oh, wow. What about that? Do like
album
15
tour.
shows?
Daybreaker album tour. Yeah.
We do 10 shows, and 10 songs are written at the end of every event.
Come
like
on.
one song at the end of it. So by the end of the tour, you have a 10-song album,
song record
written by the community. Yo, that's cool.
Talk about a Grammy award-winning record there.
I love that idea. Our first tour at Q1 is called Wonder, FYI. And
we can't get on the phone without, we can't get on Zoom without coming up with a new idea. I love it.
We can go on a podcast and start making ideas. Let's just schedule on the podcast. Imagine that.
Yeah, totally.
I'm down. That is awesome.
Really cool.
So you got that going on with Daybreaker, and then Brothers Koren, you have a record up for a Grammy. It's yourself, I mean, with the new one, right?
Yeah, we do. And it's the first time we've been considered in our career. Obviously we had, a 15-year career as a band called The Kin. And in 2015, on a break from touring, and we left Interscope, and in between labels, we were struck by this real gut feeling to write for others and foster other voices to the forefront. We had no idea we'd go on to create our company. So we didn't take a break from being artists, but this new sort of intuitive approach to helping foster other voices find their expression, creativity came in, and it kind of took up these sort of 3 or 4 years as we launched what we do in the world as Your Big Voice. And then right in that moment, we were like, well, we're clearly artists too. And it's not The Kin right now. If we did something together as brothers, what would it be? We were kind of mulling about it. And right at that time, we went back to New York and played Rockwood Music Hall. Just old Kin songs and different things we'd been up to. And Ken Rockwood, who is the founder and creator of Rockwood Music Hall, pulled Isaac aside actually and was like, I want to sign you guys. First of all, no one's ever said those words.
Not like that.
Ever?
And not with a finger in the chest.
Like, I want to sign
it was like
you
very
guys.
pointed.
Sign you.
I want to sign you guys.
It was like very like,
I was like, okay.
it was very like a movie about
Sounds nice.
some kind of music movie, like,
Yeah.
and so we got on the phone with him after this trip and said, okay, Ken, what do you mean by that? And he was like, just you brothers, and we're like, do you mean like stripped down just songs and stories, just two voices? And he was like, yeah. And we're like, oh, thank God, because that's exactly what we were thinking. Like if we ever do an album, just the two of us, we want it to be like our take on stripped back. It wasn't even intentionally made to be folk. It was meant to be stories from two voices harmonizing.
We wanted to try harmonizing the whole time, basically.
Pretty much every moment.
This is how we started. And then we kind of branched off into different ways of singing together. But this album, we just wanted to be like this.
Yeah.
And
So
and
we started the process by taking ourselves along the songwriters journey, which is our sort of flagship program we take people on. And so we took ourselves on at late night. Like Isaac would come round to my house. And it just so happened that at the same time we were writing this album, I had a son born with this severe brain injury. His name was Jack, and he had nurses and feeding tubes and suction machines, and our life had been turned upside down. And but he was with us, and he was this little miracle. And one of the very few things that he loved was to hear sounds and music. It would calm him down. And so we'd bring him in at night next to us as we'd kind of began to call in these songs, and more and more he would participate with us in some way. He probably only had about 5% brain function, according to neurologists, but he really could clue into music. And even one of the songs he would sort of sing these, sort of make these vocal sounds, and so we even based a couple of songs off the key he was making.
absolutely.
The sound.
I mean, he really
Wow.
he proved that everyone has a voice.
Absolutely.
That is special. Wow.
So he was with us, and it actually became an album to grieve the experience. Anyone that goes through an experience where they have a child born to that kind of severity, there was obviously a lot of grief to process in our family. So it almost became an album for us to do that in.
A safe space for that to occur, and there was conversations between all of us and our mother, who had different opinions about what to do and everything. So we kind of put all of that trauma and tension into songs where they could actually be beautiful.
So we ended up curating together about 16 songs and recorded, I believe, 14. We went to Sonic Ranch down in.
Oh, you did.
Oh,
Wow.
So
I've only
spoiled.
heard amazing things about
unbelievable.
Rada, this space. Sonic Ranch, I think it's the
That's
best.
where we should finish
in
the
the
tour,
country.
Rada. That's where we should finish the tour
Where
for
is it?
and just record the album at
El
Sonic
Paso,
Ranch.
Texas. It's on a 3,000-acre pecan farm, and the owner has curated together like art pieces and the best recording gear in the country, I believe, and it's unbelievable.
Picasso.
You stay in these amazing rooms. There's incredible food that's cooked there. It's right on the border, literally on the Mexican wall.
There's a lot of
Wow.
energy, a lot of energy there.
Lots
Right
of-
I
there.
want to. Yeah, I love that. I
It's
love that
amazing.
idea. What's it called?
Sonic Ranch.
And so we went down, and with Ken, and Nick Hart was the producer, who, Grammy Award-winning producer, Snarky Puppy Records. He's done many great things in his career.
An old friend of
An old
ours.
friend who did Rise and Fall, an album
Oh, okay.
that we put
Yeah,
out
the
as the
Ken
Ken.
album.
Yeah.
And so off we went. We were there for a week and it was just a dream. And out came this record called I Went to the Sea to Be Free. And that's what's submitted this year.
That is so amazing. Yeah, that spot has had so many legendary records come out of it. I mean, from all genres of music. It's crazy. I mean, At the Drive-In is like one side of the scope to your record. Like, it's just all over the place. But
It really is.
It's
I've heard
stunning.
only amazing things about the rancher.
They're all true. They're all true.
Well, very cool. I'm so glad we had the chance to all get together and talk about this amazing project you put together.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Yeah, this
Thank
is
you.
fantastic.
I have one more question. I want to get an answer from everyone individually. If you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Radha, do you want to go first?
Sure. Get into your body. You know, I think so much of the songwriting process can be in your head, and to really, as you're writing, don't sit down and be static, be standing and move your body. I think that's the piece of advice I can offer.
Lovely. Love
Like
that so
that.
much. I would add by saying, dare to suck. You know, just to reiterate, you know, let the first idea come out without criticism or judgment. You know, they can be a part of the first part of the songwriting process. Has to be trust and belief that maybe, just maybe, your ideas are brilliant, and they might not be curated yet, but let them out. Yes and yes and yes and yes
Nice.
and yes, and name your ideas. That would be just to reiterate that again.
I would say don't do it alone. You know, so it's the lone wolf path to songwriting or any creative act. You know, I think we were built as humans to interact, to collaborate, to reflect, you know, to support, to create a safe space for people to dare to suck and to be in their body and to feel free and expressive. And, you know, I think, you know, safe spaces for songwriting, sober songwriting sessions, perhaps, you know, so many times we've gone to sessions before and it's been, you know, whatever, there's just not a sober environment. And so, you know, for people to kind of experience that perhaps would be great, like safe spaces so that people can, you know, truly collaborate and trust each other. Because it takes a lot of, you know, trusting and writing a song together is a radical act in a way.
Bringing it backward.